Uh, I'm not a Heidegger scholar. This is, I took a course in graduate school on Heidegger. This is some thoughts I had while reading a book that was published, well, in English it was maybe brought out in October of last year or something like that. It was reviewed in the Times, and it was something I picked up. And I was struck by some claims that, by Emmanuel Faye, who's a philosopher in France, French philosopher, that he made that somehow that Heidegger's Nazism or his Nazi works, which I'll get to, were a continuation of being in time. And how is that even possible? I mean, being in time, it's like Strussburg in metaphysics, many people would say it's unreadable. So I'm going to piece together some way in which it might be, and this is the result of that. A few facts about Heidegger. Being in Time came out in 1927. It got him the professorship, a professorship at the University of Freiburg. It was Husserl, his dissertation advisor, Edmund Husserl, stepped down, and his prize student, Martin Heidegger, was given the position. He voted for the National Socialists in 32. He joined them, officially joined the party in 33. A few months later, he was elected rector at the University of Freiburg. He quit the following year for reasons some people aren't quite clear about. After the war, he was arrested by the French, and he was investigated. He was declared to be, this is a German word, Mitglied for fellow traveler. It was translated, can be translated in 49. He was forbidden to teach, but he eventually, he couldn't teach for a while, but eventually he went back to Freiburg and on. In terms of what the Allies apparently used after the war as far as degrees of Nazihood, the worst being major offenders, Neuffer was just a bit above or below, however you want to put it, exonerated. You're not incriminated persons. Being in Time, I'm from the school of analytic philosophy, which basically flourishes in English-speaking countries like America, Australia, the UK, to some extent in Scandinavia. Continental Europe, Heideggerian philosophy holds sway, and there's a line. It's by no means a direct line, but from Heidegger through up until postmodernism today, passing through Derrida and other people. If this were to be fully drawn out, it would be some complicated tree thing. I mean, the sort of thing that you find in read a book on the English monarchy, and the first few pages are these trees of who bore who and success. I mean, they would look like that. But there is a line from Heidegger through postmodernism. Heidegger is very much alive and extremely influential in France. There were two books that came out on Heidegger's Nazism in relation to his philosophy. There's a third by Hugo Ott called something like Heidegger's Politics, but it doesn't really touch on his philosophy. That was around this time also. The first one was by a Chilean sociologist named Farias, and it really shook up the French Heideggerian world. From an article by Richard Walden, few events in recent memory have shaken the world of French letters as much as the appearance last fall of Victor Farias' book, Heidegger et le Nazisme. The French Heideggerians, the old school, reacted violently. I mean, they really over the top. Someone named Martineau called Farias the Chilean Zorro, just down from the Andes, who sought to destabilize the Western democracies by making Heidegger pay for the CIA's debts. Derrida just dismissed it. As far as the essential facts are concerned, I haven't discovered anything in this investigation that had not been known, at least for a long time. Those with a serious index interest in Heidegger. Another Heideggerian, French Heideggerian named Jean Beaufray, who says the properly German situation in 1933 contains sufficient ambiguity for Heidegger to adhere to the National Socialist Party. By the way, Beaufray was one of the things a Holocaust denier. And then there's another French Heideggerian named Favier, who says the following: nihilism, which remains the foremost historical achievement of Nazism, is not criminal in itself, or is neutral, but is a historical phenomenon that convey our unequal terms and possibilities just as much as negative ones, as if Heidegger just happened to belong to a certain philosophical school of thought, and what's the big deal? The second book that appeared with regard to Heidegger and his relation with philosophy was by Emmanuel Faye, and that's the one I most want to concentrate on. Faye really wasn't a philosopher, and his attempts to fit Heidegger's Nazi thought into his philosophy are really not very good. Actually, Faye's aren't either that terribly good, but at least Faye has more of his finger on the philosophical pulse. By the way, this was a bit of a family business. Emmanuel Faye, I got an email, by the way, from Emmanuel Faye in French saying some students told him about this lecture and he wanted to have a copy of it.
Oh,
Anybody hear squeal? Anyway, his father, Jean-Pierre Faye, these are not translated into English. There's a book called Langue Totalitaire in 2 volumes, and then La Piège, this means the trap, Heideggerian philosophy and National Socialism. The father and Derrida had engaged in a kind of an academic food fight for a few years. One of the, I just quote this because I find it kind of amusing, Carlin Romano was a bit of a crank himself, writing in the Chronicle of Higher Education on Faye's books, how many scholarly stakes in the heart will we need before Martin Heidegger, still regarded by some as Germany's greatest 20th century philosopher, reaches his final resting place as a prolific provincial Nazi hack. Overrated in his prime, bizarrely venerated by acolytes even now, the pretentious old Black Forest babbler makes one wonder whether there's a university press equivalent of Wolfsbane guaranteed to keep philosophical frauds at a distance. There's something about this Heidegger and his Nazism that brings that sends people over the top. Was he a Nazi? Yes. After the war, his defense, he gave several defenses. He said he became rector of the university to preserve the university's freedom. Somebody had to do it, and he thought, in the face of the circumstances, maybe he could do the best job. And he encouraged the view that he was only committed to some sort of vaguely philosophical version of National Socialism. This is one example of the latter. This is a lecture he delivered in 1935, published in 1953 as an introduction to metaphysics. The works that are being, and the lecture, the works that are being offered today being 1935, is the philosophy of National Socialism, that have nothing to do with the inner truth and greatness of this movement, namely with the encounter of planetarily determined technology and modern human beings, are fishing for big catches in the murky waters of values and goals. And he elaborates on this. I mean, it's as if what he thought National Socialism was going to do was better prepared somehow to save people from technology or deal with technology, better prepared than the Western democracies. I have no idea how he thought that, but it's one of the reasons he said he's National Socialist. As for the freedom of the German university, he really got himself appointed, not elected, rector, sent a telegram to Hitler. After the Nazis were, the National Socialist Party was